China is peeved and putting its feelings on display Wednesday, launching military drills in the waters and airspace near Taiwan. These images shared on Chinese state-run TV. Live fire exercises are expected to stretch through the weekend. It's all part of an angry reaction to the short and headline-grabbing trip to Taiwan by U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, who defied China's warnings to stay away.
Today, the world faces a choice between democracy and autocracy.
Wrapping up this, the highest level U.S. visit to the self-ruled island in 25 years, Pelosi pledged her country's commitment to preserving democracy in Taiwan and around the world. As she headed off to the next stop on her Asia tour, the longtime Beijing critic released a statement saying China can't stop other world leaders from visiting Taiwan. Back to those military drills, China had cautioned there would be dire consequences if Pelosi's visit did go ahead, saying the trip would have a severe impact on U.S.-China relations. And that's because China claims Taiwan as its own and considers visits by foreign government officials as recognizing Taiwan's sovereignty. Russia also not a fan of Pelosi's stop. The Kremlin saying the tension it's provoking should not be underestimated. Taiwan's defense ministry slamming China's military exercises Wednesday, calling Beijing's behavior reckless and a challenge to international order.
Trying to cool things down, G7 foreign ministers just out with a new statement saying they're concerned about threatening actions announced by China. They go on to say there is no justification to use a visit as pretext for aggressive military action in the Taiwan Straits. They're urging calm from all sides. And there was an update from government officials in Taiwan on Wednesday. They say that all public institutions were hit by cyber attacks on Tuesday, right in time for Pelosi's landing time. They're blaming China and Russia for being behind some of those hacks. And now they're stepping up security in places like power plants and in airports. And as for those drills around Taiwan, they're expected to just surround the island. This is a map from the New York Times, and it's using details shared by Chinese media that shows the planned operations. They'll come within about 16 kilometers of Taiwan's coast, areas Taiwan designates as its territorial waters.
Call halal Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rakakadash. Double honors unto the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Peace and blessings to you, brothers pushing this truth worldwide. Shalom to the elect, and of course, Shalak Rayam to you demons. For years, starting with the elder apostles on down, we have been preaching the destruction of Babylon and the return of the Lord Power Yahweh, Ba'asham, in the name of his son Yahweh Shai, in the chariots, what the world ignorantly calls today UFOs, to visit the other nations of the earth who are complicit with Esau, Edom, the so-called white man, really the white establishment, so you can understand. In touching the apple of his eye, we Hebrew Israelites scattered across all nations, and the judgment he has set for Esau and the other nations for the wickedness they have spread throughout and polluted the planet Earth. Isaiah 2:12 says this: For the day of Yahweh, the Lord of hosts, shall be upon everyone that is proud and lofty, speaking to the lack of humility and the sense of self-worth the other nations outside of Israel express, how they prop themselves up as if they alone are responsible for their increase on the earth, as if the Lord Power Yahweh is a mere contemporary of theirs and they can match him in power and spirit. Lofty meaning exalted, how they magnify themselves above the Most High Power and his throne. For the day of Yahweh, the Lord of hosts, shall be upon everyone that is proud and lofty, and upon everyone that is lifted up. He shall be brought low, meaning casted down, humbled, humiliated. That ego of theirs being brought back to the reality, and like Commodus in the movie Gladiator, really the writers of the film took artistic liberty with actual historic events, but the idea there is simply the time of Esau and these other nations honoring themselves will be brought to an end. Again, the proud and lofty are the other nations, generally speaking, that redneck demon Esau, Moab, who we know today to be the so-called Chinese, Ammon, the so-called Japanese, Elam, the so-called East Indians, Ham, the so-called Africans, and so on and so forth. And again, for those of you who are listening impaired, not everyone who may appear visibly to be of the other nations are heathens. Again, Israel was scattered all throughout the planet Earth. Those dispersed amongst Esau, Moab, Ammon, Elam, Ham, etc., may very well be Hebrew Israelites. In any event, the question still remains, who is prouder than the nation of Esau, Edom? I'll tell you who is the first runner-up. Gotta be Eve, the so-called Negro woman, followed by the woman of the other nations after her kind and with the same mindset. See, Nancy Pelosi will have you believe it is because of her womanhood that China has taken issue to her Taiwan visit, not the fact that she is House Speaker and third in line to the presidency of the United States. The U.S., aka Babylon the Great, according to the scriptures, has taken issue with China staking their claim over Taiwan, yet they don't expect anyone with eyes to see looking at them sideways for the position they've taken regarding Hawaii, Guam, the Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, the so-called native land they've subjugated, namely the island of Manhattan, where they'll tell anybody foolish enough to listen that they've acquired it from our brother Gad, fair and square. The parts of Mexico that weren't quote-unquote sold to them, never mind Alaska, which is clearly in Canadian territory, and the military occupation of 750 bases spread across the other 80 nations. The Heavenly Father, whose true name is Yahweh, not God. God is not a name, it is a title. The Most High Power, whose true name is Yahweh, which means He exists. Ergo, He is the all in everything. He who is Israel's Heavenly Father, He says this, Psalm 60 and 8. The same is written in Psalms 108 and 9 throughout. Moab is my washpot, over Edom will I cast out my shoe. Philistia, triumph thou because of me. Who will bring me into Salakia, the strong city? Who will lead me into Edom? Moab is my washpot, meaning Yahweh will choose China, biblically known as Moab, to wash America, aka Babylon the Great, and clean Esau, Edom, out. He's doing it as we speak with China's stranglehold on the American economy, and they're taking over the world's leading economic status. Over Edom will I cast out my shoe. To cast out, we know in the Hebrew, is shalak, meaning to throw or down or throw out. In the antiquities, the casting down of a shoe, amongst other things, was mainly a symbol of occupancy. Just like Jerusalem is a people before it's a place, well, so is Esau, Edom. So the idea is not only for China to overrun the U.S. and occupy it, which China is doing now by land purchases and the buying up of U.S. territory, be it real estate and farmland. Ultimately, it speaks to taking Esau, Edom into possession and subjecting them to the same harsh conditions they had us in with slavery. The Heavenly Father says in Isaiah, the 61st chapter, for the shame and confusion they've casted on Israel, and for the taking of our territory will be doubly compensated. I don't know if that's even a word, but in any event, the recompense for what they've done to us, their reward too, will be double. Philistia, triumph thou because of me. Well, how does Philistia, today known throughout the world as Africa, triumph? For those living under a rock, so-called Africa has been finding their success with China going in and buying up land in their territory and lending the continent on a whole their economic support, which does what? It makes it harder and harder for the U.S. to go in and to rape the continent of its natural resources. Does not mean that China and the other nations like Japan, North Korea, South Korea, Taiwan, etc., are going to get away for their own insolence scot-free. First Kings, the 11th chapter, speaks to the many abominations Moab has committed before the Heavenly Father. Esau is not alone in the polluting of the earth, the spells and curses being casted out and the overall wickedness being spread throughout the world. A lot of that evil you see today permeating throughout the earth is being made in China. The U.S., for example, the U.S. laboratories is set up to do research in what has become the conduit, meaning the major cause for the shutting down of the global economy and the economic shift that has only benefited the elite haves, which pretty much destroyed the blue collar and regular working class Joe. That U.S. research was being conducted in China. In fact, China is not only a major player in biological warfare and a world leader in the creation of man-made diseases, they have gone on public record many times to boast of their advancements in their respective fields of study. Let's go to 2nd Ezra, the 15th chapter. 2nd Ezra 15 and 46 says this. And thou, Asia, that art partaker of the hope of Babylon, and art the glory of her person. For those not in the loop, this is a prophecy of Asia. To prophesy really means to say before, speaking to what would befall the inhabitants of the landmass, particularly in the last days, specifically the times we are in now. Again, this speaks to the judgments of the Lord. The Lord himself, Yahweh, has set on Moab and Ammon, the Chinese and the Japanese, first and foremost, China being the more powerful out of the two and the most prominent of them all, speaking to her contemporaries, the Koreas, the Vietnamese, etc., etc. And thou, Asia, that art partaker of the hope of Babylon. Now, the hope of Babylon speaks to the desire of getting money above everything else. Economic sustained wealth. We know today as the practice of capitalism. Asia's hopes and ambitions has always been not only to be on Babylon, aka America's level, but the next to rule. Geopolitically, although Saudi Arabia is a close second, but truly it is China that is keeping the American economy afloat. China continues its relations with Babylon because of its hopes to build an empire that will eclipse even America in its power. Can't nobody reverse engineer and put a spin on it like the Chinese. Go down to Canal Street in New York City, you'll see China is the ultimate biter. 2nd Ezra 15 and 47, woe be unto thee, thou wretch, because thou hast made thyself like unto her, and hast decked thy daughters in whoredom. Ergo, woe, meaning utter destruction, is coming to China for taking on an identity that is just like America, the mimicking of American business practices like the stock market, which incidentally, America's so-called first bond market was backed by what? The enslaved human, namely we Hebrew Israelites. We were the livestock being sold, which catapulted the American empire into super world economic status. Nonetheless, China and Japan have long had an infatuation with the image of the beast Americana, i.e. the American way of life and its lifestyle. America's fast food industry, it's a fashion industry, even the central banks, all stylized like the United States market set up for capital gain. That they might please and glory in thy lovers, which have always desired to commit whoredom with thee. Hence the saying, being in bed with, speaking to China, Japan, and the other nations of the earth in league with, and doing business with Esau. Again, everything nowadays is made in China. A matter of fact, China used to be the forbidden land before it became an open market of commerce to the world. Beijing and Hong Kong were places for travel and tourism prior to COVID and the outbreak, the manufactured outbreak to lock the global economy down. 2nd Ezra 15 and 48. Thou hast followed her that is hated in all her works and inventions. Therefore, saith the Heavenly Father. It is Esau, Edom, and Babylon, starting with the American government, who is the world's most hated in all her works. I will send plagues upon thee, widowhood, poverty, famine, sword, and pestilence, to waste thy houses with destruction and death. So don't think China has been given immunity from the judgments of the Heavenly Father. They too will fall by the modern day sword, the nuclear missiles. And the glory of thy power shall be dried up as a flower. The heat shall arise that is sent over thee. Not only will China taste the nectar of the intercontinental ballistic missile, the ultimate woe for China and her cohorts will be to face Yahweh Shai coming in those chariots. Let's close with this. Ezekiel, the 25th chapter. We'll start at verse 8. Thus saith the Lord power Yahweh, because that Moab and Seir do say, behold, the house of Judah is like unto all the heathen. Because Esau, Edom, and the Moabites, Seir representing the people of Esau, Edom, the nation of Esau, Edom, and the Moabites, who too has had their hand in the downtrodden and the harsh conditions suffered by we Hebrew Israelites, because Babylon and China has regarded us as common heathens and not as the sons of God and the princes of the universe that we are. Therefore, behold, I will open the side of Moab from his cities which are on his frontiers, the glory of the country, Beth Jeshimoth, Baal Meon, and Kiriathaim, Salakia, which really speaks to Asia's major ports and its principal cities today. Unto the men of the east with the Ammonites, again today known as the Japanese, and will give them in possession, that the Ammonites may not be remembered among the nations. And I will execute judgments upon Moab, and they shall know that I am the Lord power Yahweh, the true King of the universe, and the power of we Hebrew Israelites. Ezekiel 25:12. Thus saith the Lord power Yahweh, because that Edom hath dealt against the house of Judah by taking vengeance, and hath greatly offended and revenged himself upon them. Ultimately, Esau is still mad about his blessing and birthright being passed on to us, we, the true descendants of his brother Jacob. Therefore, thus saith the Lord power Yahweh, I will also stretch out mine hand upon Edom, and will cut off man and beast from it, and will make it desolate from Teman. And they of Dedan shall fall by the sword. And again, that sword is what? The nuclear missiles. And I will lay my vengeance upon Edom, aka America, aka Babylon the Great, by the hand of my people Israel, meaning we Hebrew Israelites, we so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native Indians, and those scattered among the other nations who look like the other nations. And they shall do in Edom according to mine anger, and according to my fury, and they shall know my vengeance, saith Yahweh, the Lord of power. Boy, I can't wait. Call halal Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahshai Ba'Shem Rakakwadash through the power and spirit. I hope you're edified. Double honors unto the elders and apostles of Great Millstone who teach us 100% truth and rule well. Salutations to the hopeful elect. Remember, no tests, no yab, and damn sure, don't take that CHIP. Shalom, Yasharallah. Shalom to the elect.